All right, attendees should start coming in any second now. Good evening, everybody. My name is Jeff Winchell from Aspen Dental. I want to thank everybody for joining us this evening. I've been with Aspen Dental about 7 years right to this point, and work with the academic and industry relations team. We are going to wait just a few more minutes, let people get on, and then we will continue. So just hold tight, but thank you very much.
I'm taking a CE course right now.
Dude, you're multitasking right now? I don't have your full attention? All right.
I'm just waiting for the CE credit to pop up. Booting out.
All right, you got it on play. All right, the whole world's listening in, so.
Oh no.
Yeah, I know. What are you gonna do?
It's what you do every day. With a small child, you have to do this.
All right. That's a little something for our guests and audience to take in, I guess.
One of Dr. Oakes' tidbits.
Gotcha. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Jeff Winchell from Aspen Dental, Academic and Industry Relations. Thank you all for joining us. We have a fantastic lineup of panelists. We're going to cover sponsorships, and we have a practice owner. Just going to give a few more minutes before we do the introductions of the panelists, so hold tight. Thank you. Welcome, Ryan.
Hi.
How's it going, man? Thanks for everything.
Oh yeah, no problem.
We're going to start here in just about 1 minute.
All right, perfect. I made it just in time.
Can you hear that screaming? Oh, yeah.
Can't wait for it to be in my house. All right, everybody, I think we'll get started. First and foremost, I want to thank you all and introduce myself. My name is Jeff Winchell. I've been with Aspen Dental for 7.5 years. nearly 8 years now. For the majority of that time, I've been with the Aspen Dental Academic and Industry Relations team, and it's been a pleasure. Listen, tonight is about you all as guests and attendees. That's why we call it Ask Me Anything. It's really, really important that you all ask questions in the Q&A box, and that will sort of drive the content for this evening. So we have an hour, and at the end of it, about 5 minutes, we'll wrap up, and we do have 2 randomly selected Amazon gift cards to raffle off, so stay tuned for that. Just a side note, you have to be still on in order to be eligible for that. Without further ado, I sort of want to introduce our panelists, and we're going to do this a little bit differently. So Dr. Oakes, why don't you just introduce yourself just high level, and then we'll give the floor to Tina.
Hi, everybody. My name is Dr. Nathan Oakes. I am an owner in Southern Maine. I have 3 offices, one in Biddeford, South Portland, and Portland. I graduated from Tufts in 2013 and purchased my first office in 2017 and 2 more in 2018 with my wife, Laura Oakes.
Awesome. So total of 5 offices?
No, right now just
3 offices.
We're working on 4, and then we're talking about expanding a little bit northwest towards like Sebago Lake or possibly southwest into like.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you, Dr. Oakes, and thank you very much for taking some time out of your busy schedule to join us tonight. So Ms. Tina Bao. Ms. Tina Bao is actually from immigration, the legal team, and she handles immigration, and she works directly with doctors and sponsorships. So I asked Tina to kind of introduce herself and give a little spiel about the TN sponsorships, since there's plenty of people on this call that are from Canada and may be wondering about that. So Tina, you have the floor.
Thanks, Jeff. As Jeff said, I am the immigration paralegal. I've also been with Aspen for 7.5 years. I think Jeff and I started around the same time. So I've been doing this role for quite a while. And I work with all of our doctors who require visa sponsorship. So as he said, today we're going to specifically talk about the TN visas. So you may or may not know that TN visa sponsorship is offered to our Canadian citizens through the trade agreement between the United States and Canada. They're relatively easy to obtain, pretty quick turnaround time to put them together. We do work with an attorney to provide you with the employment letter that they require and supporting documents that are going to be necessary for you to apply at the border. You can do so either by car or via plane. When approved, it's simply going to be a stamp in your passport that's going to be valid for 3 years and can be renewed every 3 years indefinitely. Like I said, they're easy to get approved for as long as you have the proper credentials. There shouldn't be any issues. So that's one of the reasons why we use an attorney to review all of your documents to make sure that you have the best chance of success, as we don't want anybody getting stuck. And it's also helpful that if there is an issue, the agents can just simply call her. And your Aspen employers are going to cover the cost of the attorney to do that for you, so that's great. Right now, we have around 20 doctors sponsored on TN visas in our network. We have about another dozen in the process over the next 3-4 months. And I assume that number is going to continue to grow as we do more work with the Canadian dental schools. And as a side note, just in case anybody's worried, they do tend to be very flexible. So you can cross the border back and forth as you wish after you have it, no problem. I have a few important points that I want to touch on, which I just think are important to know going into it. The first thing being is that your visa is going to be employer sponsored. So within the Aspen network, each individual office is owned by a practice owner, as Dr. Oakes had said. So Aspen Dental is not going to be your employer. It's strictly a trade name, and I think that that gets confusing sometimes. So with the visa, that means that you will be restricted to work for just that entity who sponsors your visa. So you're not going to be able to float throughout the Aspen network. However, if you did need to transfer from one office to another, we just simply send you back to the border, get a new TN, very easy. Second thing is we're going to want you to have your dental license prior to applying for the visa. So if you read the statutes and the rules, the license should not be required on top of your dental degree. However, we're finding that most border agents do take the stand that it is, and they will issue you a denial if you don't have it. So it's going to be really important for you to apply for those state dental licenses and have it before we send you to the border. The last thing to know is you're going to need to obtain a social security number in order to be employed. And you're not going to be able to do that until after you cross in with the visa. So that means that our internal departments, such as credentialing, HR, they're not going to be able to fully approve you or finalize your onboarding without it. So after you cross with the visa, there's still going to be some additional steps you have to take to get that. It's very doable. It's just another added layer that I think is important to know ahead of time. I think.
Sorry, I was muted. Anything we don't cover, thank you very much. That was awesome, Tina. Anything we don't cover tonight, you will work with a recruiter as well as Tina once that process gets started. So this was sort of just an introduction, basically saying that we do sponsor Canadian, TNs, and they're relatively simple. There are just a few hiccups, and you want to do things the correct way. But I think we have 20 dentists currently working on TN visas, and another 10 or 15 in process. So we do work with Canadians. On that note, I do have a few questions that'll be directed to you, Tina, before we hand it over to Dr. Oakes. The first one is, one question is basically, I'm in a Canadian citizen in dental school in Massachusetts. In my last year, I heard that if you apply for the TN and work in the United States, it's really difficult, almost or impossible, to apply for a green card in the future. What are your thoughts on that?
I have heard that as well. And if you read the statutes and the rules word for word, that's pretty much what it says. However, our trade agreement is very flexible, our relationship with Canada. So we are actually able to do some green card sponsorships for our TN holders. And I have done them for the past 7 years. So it's doable.
Okay, great. So it's not a stop sign. It's not something to take. Okay, beautiful. I thank you very much. And then one more question, and you can just hit on it, and it's regarding a H-1B from India. Just kind of talk about, do we sponsor them, and some of the additional challenges that might exist, but you can keep it real brief. And I'll say to this point, you can contact me personally afterwards, and I can set up a conversation to move that conversation along further. So, but you can go ahead and answer just briefly.
Yep, we do sponsor H1s as well. So that's not a worry. They're probably going to be a little bit more of individualized conversations. Like Jeff said, that's something you would talk to him about, or another one of our recruiters about. The H1s tend to be a little harder to get, and they're a lot more restrictive than the TN visas. So the visas are very different, both very doable.
Perfect. Are there any other questions with regards to the TNs or H-1B visas that you all as attendees have? We're going to let Tina stay on the line just for a few moments to make sure that we answer everything. And I'm going to let Dr. Oakes take over from here. But before I do that, Tina really pointed out something that a lot of people don't know or misunderstand about the relationship of Aspen Dental. So the Aspen Dental dentist offices are owned and operated by dentists such as Dr. Oakes and his wife. And Aspen Dental Management, Inc. is the organization that supports each dentist office, basically from start to finish in the, administration, recruiting, patient management, technology, marketing, all that good stuff. So Dr. Oakes is going to be able to elaborate on all that. But I think it's important to point out the distinction between the Aspen Dental branded offices that are actually owned by the dentists and the Aspen Dental Management, which is the organization that supports all 800 and let's call it 50 offices around the country. So with that said, and that in top of mind, I want to give the floor to Dr. Oakes, where you can kind of, tell your story. So you have 3 to 5 minutes or so to tell your story, and then we'll open it up for questions.
Do you want me to begin? Just like kind of like my background, my story,
just kind of introduce yourself, nuts to bolts a little.
I mean, so I started with Aspen Dental, like I said, in 2013, and it wasn't on a whim. I interviewed at 3 private practices. One of them was right in my hometown, and the dentist said, come back and see me when you graduate and we could talk about associateship. And I was like super excited because I could live in my parents' basement. I called the guy back, and he's like, you need to have 2 years experience or a residency. So I was like totally turned off by it. I had a friend who worked in private practice who left working in private practice and joined Aspen just outside of Boston. And by the time I had graduated, he had moved to Florida and had started in his own office and was buying that one. And it just, South Portland, Maine kind of fell into my lap because there's a doctor leaving. And I stuck with it. Like, it was one of the greatest experiences ever. And I didn't realize it at first, probably 6 months into it, probably around Christmas time. There was maybe 10 of us that practice in like the Southern Maine area, and we were all out having beers, and we were talking about how many crown preps we had done, how many fillings we had done, how many dentures, extractions. And I stopped counting after 25 because that's all my friends had done. I'd probably done close to 100 crowns in 6 months, delivered close to 50 dentures, infinite amount of fillings. So my experience and my exposure was probably 10 times what my friends were getting in private practice. And on top of it, I was getting, a guaranteed daily draw where I would go play golf with my friend, and he's like, I haven't seen a single patient all week. I'm not going to get paid. So there was always stresses with that because they hadn't built up their patient base, where I would see 8 new patients a day, or there were 8 new patients coming to the practice who needed to be seen. So they were getting thrown right into my chair, and I was able to start seeing them right away. Fast forward to 2016, I became an MCD, so managing clinical director, which means I got a little bit more profit. I made some more money. And then by 2017, the current owners at the time sold the first office to me, and they moved to Florida, and I bought their 2 other offices. And since then, my wife, Dr. Laura Oakes, and I have built the practices even more. And we probably have one of the #1 hygiene programs in the country, probably top existing patients that come into our office every single day or call our office every single day. So we've set the bar pretty high. We didn't realize it at first. I don't know if it was just dumb luck or we focus on certain aspects of our business, but we've been very, very successful and very, very lucky. And now we are building the business more. We've hired on 3 more doctors, and we're going to put 3 doctors in one office and potentially 3 in another office, so we can have extended hours to just try and help out more patients. How was that, Jeff? Is that good?
Yeah, no, that's good. Everybody, just to let you guys know, so he mentioned the MCD, that's a managing clinical director. There are 2 different levels of dentists in many of our offices. An associate dentist is just like an associate dentist would be at a private practice. You're coming on brand new, so a lot of times it's out of dental school or residency or just a young dentist, and you're there to support the office. And then there's a lead dentist or managing clinical director that has a little bit more responsibility. They take on a little bit more of a patient load, but they also have a little bit more as far as, running the office as well with the management team. So the responsibilities sort of doubled there. Do you have anything to add on that, Dr. Oakes?
I also think like the support coming out of dental school and having like this huge team behind me that is just there to say, hey, this is how the new patient works. This is how the software works. This is what the hygienists do. These are the roles. This is what we want you. It was an easy transition from dental school to being like my own dentist and not having to be like, hey, I need someone to check this out real quick. So, I mean, that was another benefit too of going from dental school into Aspen.
And how long were you an associate before you became an MCD?
It was at least 2 years. I'm pretty sure I went 13, 14, and then like the end of 15, I became the MCD. And then I ran the office in 2016 as a managing clinical director, and then I bought it in 2017.
Got it. Cool. Thank you. So I have a couple questions for Tina before you take off. So one person was asking, and it could be a conversation you'd rather have a one-on-one. They were asking about the TN visa and the sponsorship for the green card, and they wanted to elaborate a little bit on that. Do you have anything to add, or is that more of a personal conversation, Tina?
What I would add for the TNs is the difficulty comes in at the end of that green card process, where there would be a period of time where you wouldn't be able to cross back and forth over the border. So that's really the main difficulty issue.
Until the process is completed, is that what you're saying? Okay.
And yes, we would discuss the specific details on an individual basis.
Yeah, and I would say to the person who asked the question that, please, send me an email or a text. Everybody on here should have my information. We can set up a time to talk a little bit further and maybe even give examples of how, how that works. So, questions coming in. Dr. Oakes, what made you decide to go straight into practice instead of doing a residency? Why don't we start? It's a three-part question, but why don't you start there?
First, I felt really confident with my hand skills. I did, when I was at Tufts, we had a pretty good externship site that when I went there, we were treated like doctors, like, doc, how do you want to do this? What do you want to do? So I felt like my hand skills were there. I knew that having an owner in the office with me, if I got stuck, he could help me out. I remember I got stuck a couple times with extractions, and literally he came in just like, done. I'm like, well. I got scared. So it was good having someone there behind me. So like if I got stuck, I could have someone bail me out. I also, like, with prosthetics, I wasn't like super comfortable. I did 7 dentures in dental school. I understood the process. I understood like the concepts. So if I got a really difficult case, I needed some guidance through it. The owner was there to help me through that process. I probably felt really confident maybe about a year into it, where I could take a look at any case and be able to determine how I was gonna finish the case and what was gonna give me a complication and how I'd manage that complication. So within a year, I felt comfortable managing the business.
Did you have any regrets of not doing a GPR or an AGD?
The only thing that I would miss out on would have been like maybe doing some ortho, but we have an ortho program now at Aspen, and maybe doing implants. Realistically, I got, my bread and butter are extractions, dentures, crown and bridge, and fillings. Implants are next. I've definitely hit the ceiling for like my restorative abilities. The next step will be to add implants into that, which is fine. I'm at that comfortable point in my career now where I can do that.
Awesome. And the second part of the question is kind of, as a result of kind of the COVID crisis that we're going through, a D4 that maybe have lost a few months of clinical experience due to it, may not be able to get that back. What would your advice be to that particular person who may not be coming out feeling, as confident as you were?
To me, like, dentistry is dentistry. Like, we know what good dentistry is. We know what bad dentistry is. Do the right thing for the patient. If you're going to be struggling through a procedure, you should be able to like avoid those, and don't say, hey, I got this, I can do this, because you're going to find the patient that you present like a $12,000 treatment plan. You're like, I don't know how I'm going to get out of this. I don't know what I'm going to do, how it's going to work. Right now, the doctors that come into my office, I mentor them for at least 4 weeks. So they're just shadowing me. They're doing my procedures. By the end of 4 weeks, they're running my chair, and I'm just there to help in the background if they need some assistance. Like today, my associate got stuck on number 32 extraction, and I walked in, and it was one of those aha moments. I just popped right out, and it was over. And he's like, man, like I should have been able to do that. But I'm like, that's what I'm here for. Like, it's okay to be timid and nervous. Like the patient was a little bit non-compliant, like just an uncooperative patient. So it's if you feel uncomfortable, I can tell you right now that we build a schedule to what you're comfortable with, and we work on setting goals. Like, if you can do a 1 surface filling in an hour, let's try and work you towards being able to do 2 1 surface fillings in an hour, and then let's try and build your confidence up to being able to do 1 2 surface filling or 3 surface filling in an hour, and kind of build from there. So today, I did a whole quadrant of dentistry on a patient just because it just worked out perfect. Guy could open up his mouth really big. If you asked me to do that 2 months out of dental school, I wouldn't be able to get 5 fillings done. I did 5 fillings in 45 minutes, but it was a perfect patient. It was like a perfect storm.
Right. And I would also add, you can add to this, Dr. Oakes, but it's also, August. So you still do have, 7, 8 months left of your D4 year to be able to help you make that decision, get a little bit more comfortable, et cetera. But I also hear in your answer that it's really important to have a good mentorship, situation going into your first job. What would you say about that?
Yeah, I mean, having a mentor is hugely important because I've already been through a lot of the heartache, making a mistake with a denture process, or, breaking a tooth during an extraction and how to get it out, or, you recommend a MOD on a non-restorable tooth or a questionable tooth that probably needs to have a root canal. Like I can review those treatment plans with you and walk you through that process. Like I've made those mistakes already. So it's good to have that mentor there to be like, that should be a root canal. That's a filling. You can attempt a filling here, but you need to set the expectation of if I pulp out, you're going to need a root canal.
Tina, one just came in for you. And look, this may be something for the law, not you, but I'm going to read it word for word, Tina. It says, I still haven't received my pocket dental license in the mail, but I do have a PDF electronic copy on my license. Can I use that at the border, or will they ask for my dental license?
I don't see why you wouldn't be able to use the PDF. If as long as it has the license number and expiration date, that'll probably work.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yep.
All right, Dr. Oakes, what kind of CE courses have you taken through Aspen? Or has it mostly been a third-party CE courses?
I take a lot online. Aspen has, I have no idea, it's like over 2,000 hours of CE courses. In the state of Maine now, you can take everything online. You don't have to go to any live courses, but runs a gamut, opioid to restorative materials to the one I took one tonight that was on dentures. One of the big ones that really hit home with me was a lot of like the biomimetic materials that were coming out about 2 years ago, and bonding protocols for cementing crowns, posts, things like that. So, I mean, there's a ton of stuff on there. There are really good ones too that we get through, like we'll do like a big group of doctors and hygienists. Last year, I think there was like maybe 60 of us, and we learned about the new staging and grading of periodontal disease. And so we had a live course. I think it was like 4 hours. Another one I've taken was, antibiotics and I think it was peri-implantitis and mucositis. So like there's a ton of them that are live that we can take too. Right now, one of the big ones that a lot of us have been working on is our implant courses. There's about 50 CE credit hours that we're working on right now before we start doing the live training. We have to have that completed before we can start doing live training. So there's a plethora of stuff. Like you can, whatever you want to know about, learn about, it's there for you.
Dr. Oakes, are you did you go through EDGE?
Yes, I did.
Okay, so can you talk to a little bit about that? Because that's in your first 4 to 6 months, and I think
it's still called EDGE, right? Is that?
They're changing it, but just because we're not doing anything, I don't think they've made the complete, but they are changing it up a little bit and renaming it. But the general concept is there.
Okay, so the general concept of EDGE is, you come into Aspen and it's about a culture. We have this insane culture, a community of doctors that has a huge support system behind us at all times. And you need to understand what that support system does for us. Not only are they supporting you being a doctor, they're supporting you being, learning. They're supporting you with, like Tina's here tonight, helping you with your visas and your green cards. And I don't TNVs. I don't even know these things. And I would say, I honestly don't know. I'm going to ask someone at ADMI to give me the answer. And here she is. So the EDGE program at least gets your foot into the door, and you kind of go like into the deep end right away. You meet the CEO, you'll meet all the people who have built this brand and this business for us that are very important to us. And they just give you a crash course on Aspen Dental. I think the biggest take home thing for me from the Edge course that I took in 2013, 7 years ago, was the other doctors that I'm still friends with today. And I do that every single time I meet new doctors. Like we text, share ideas, but that was the biggest thing, the culture, the community, the family that you become after you go through this process together.
Great, thank you. Two other things that I'd like to point out is, we just had a really, really huge ortho initiative that is ongoing. Do you want to talk a little bit more about that, Dr. Oakes?
So the ortho program started 2 years ago under Lyft. And what that was is our introduction to Invisalign. Since then, we still do a lot of training with that. We're rolling out a new initiative too with Sure Smiles, a new company. I don't know a lot about it yet. It hasn't really been rolled out to us that much. But we have an orthodontist on board who helps walk us through treatment plans and case presentation to patients.
Yeah,
So you get hands-on work. Like we have iTero scanners in the office. You get to learn hands-on over the web, and you get to learn how to start an ortho case, finish an ortho case.
Yeah, some of the few of the initiatives are obviously the scanners, the cone beams, implantology is getting real big. We're really trying to keep up and make sure that we're up, at the gold standard as far as technology in the offices. The other thing that I wanted to mention is the 2,000 hours of courses or whatever it is that Dr. Oakes was talking about is through our online learning class. And actually that is aspendentalce.com that I put, and I answered. I'm answering one of the questions right now, so you should all see that, aspendentalce.com. That is open to all clinicians, not just Aspen Dental clinicians, for at least the rest of the year. So aspendentalce.com is, we're giving out free CE courses and all those hours and all those different subject matters for free to all dental clinicians, at least till the end of the year. So all of you in attendance, and your friends are welcome to sign on to that, create a login, and go ahead and take those CE credits. So that's the initiative that we started in result of COVID. And then, kind of, picking off that COVID statement, there was a few questions on that, Dr. Oakes, that I'd love you to comment on. First and foremost, I think the two questions. One is what is one of the biggest obstacles you personally in your office is facing post-COVID? And then I think it's important for you to talk about what precautions and protocols are in your office as a result of COVID and making sure everybody's safe.
I mean, the biggest obstacle is just making sure people feel safe and comfortable and understanding what the risk is of this COVID crisis. Everyone has a different opinion. The verdict isn't out on this just yet. We don't know how long this is going to last, what this looks like. There's a lot of conspiracies behind it. The simple thing that I always try and explain to my staff and to everyone else is that we have universal precautions for a reason. And our risk is probably the lowest out of all of the health professions, even though we're right in the airway path for pathogens. The people that are going into the hospital are sick. Those sick people aren't coming to our office. The patients that we're most nervous about are the ones that are asymptomatic, and we're still trying to find out what that means. From my understanding, the asymptomatic patients, there's only a 1% chance that they might be able to get you sick, but you're also wearing a mask. You have high volume evacuators in the operatories. Some people have gone even as far as having those external evacuators to grab anything else in the air. So those are all there for us. We changed our protocols in the office. A lot of people wearing face shields. They also have the isolation units, the isolights in patients' mouths for hygiene and for procedures, on top of having an extra high volume suction to make sure we're just getting everything. I think like I said, the biggest obstacle is just making sure people feel comfortable. And then I guess the other thing is like the PPE. Do we have it? How did we get it? A lot of our friends in private practice didn't have it, couldn't get it, had to stay closed. And Aspen, from our purchasing side, just went out to every single vendor and said, we want whatever you can give us. And so we have an automatic shipment coming every single week that's just kind of replenishing what we need.
I think the standard to the offices, right, because our relationship with Henry Schein is that we have at least 30 days of PPP on hand at any given time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
so
that's what it is.
Shortage, we have 30 days for that order if that's the case. So that's really big. It's really big to make sure that we can maintain those patient appointments and that our doctors are going in there and being able to treat them, because we have 30 days on hand if for whatever reason a shipment is not shipped and received. So that's one thing that I just wanted to add.
And like I said, I think dentists do it the best. I think we as a profession manage infectious diseases better than anyone else. You never see it in the news, like MRSA infections coming from a dental office. You always hear of it at a hospital, like they find MRSA everywhere. So, I mean, it's possible to get in a dental office, but like it's less common, I feel like, when with us, because we have better infection protocols for ourselves. And the biggest thing to understand is like the PPEs, we're protecting ourselves from what potentially a patient could expose to us. You're on mute.
Sorry about that, man. Here's a fun one. You know, questions coming in. When should we start applying for jobs?
Now, I hire all my doctors in advance. I think the last 5 doctors I've hired, I've given them contracts or letter of agreements within like 6 months out, 7 months out. So I'll hire them in like November, December.
Okay. So, and you know, to just piggy on that, like Dr. Oakes is one owner of over 200, 50 owner dentists around the organization. And for the most part, I mean, we had about 150 dentists hired before December 31st this past year. Mm-hmm. So we hired tons of dentists in advance. So Dr. Oakes, I guess if you're going to, do that and sign something early like that, what is the process after you sign? How does that look? Do all of your dentists have a place, a landing spot automatically, or if I'm a D4 and I sign with you in the Portland area, how do I know where I'm going to be working? How does that work out?
So, I mean, this was kind of a weird year for me because the whole COVID thing, one school graduated early, the other one graduated late. And so it set some people back. So for me this last year, it was I just needed a doctor as soon as possible because I've been without a doctor for almost 6 months and I was working alone. My fingers were bleeding every single day because I was working so hard. So first doctor came to work for me right away. The next one we brought in to go work with my wife, Dr. Oakes, Laura Oakes. And then I'm still waiting for one more doctor to go through committee before we can start credentialing him with the insurance companies. And then he's going to go to the next office. I credential all my doctors for all of my offices because, someone's going to go out on vacation and we want to make sure we have coverage. So we're going to find the best fit for you. It's not uncommon to have doctors flip-flop between the offices. So we find like the perfect fit, perfect team for them.
Thank you. Another one coming in is, how long does it generally take for a new dentist to become an owner?
That all depends. It took me 4 years. Laura and I still have a friend. Is he in Wisconsin? Is Dr. Ishikawa, Ken Ishikawa, is he in like Wisconsin? He wasn't he? He's 7 years. Still not an owner. So we have Dr. Meckelberg down in Florida. He was like 6 months. He started working with Aspen within 6 months. Like, we got an office for you. So it really depends on what you're comfortable with. If you are very confident and able to run an office, there's a path for you. Now, is there an office available for you to own in Portland, Maine? No, unfortunately, because I own that office already. So what Dr. Mecklenburg did, he was working in Illinois, I believe, and there was an opportunity in Jacksonville, Florida, and he moved to Florida because he wanted an office that bad. So there's offices opening up across the country that are unowned. You just have to be able to make that move to that location and start up your life there.
Yeah, I think to add to that is, people become owners within 6 months, 8 months. But I also know dentists around the organization that have been associates and lead dentists, and we call them managing clinical directors, for 5, 6, 7 years, and then, eventually partnered in, and then eventually own their own office. And there's everything in between. And I think to Dr. Oaks' point, look at very, very few dentists. I think we have 1,200 clinicians on staff, working under the Aspen Dental brand right now in the family, and everybody has a different path. Very, very few of those clinicians start in one practice and end in that practice. I think the variables to becoming an owner are competency, drive, business savvy, making sure that you're able to, help maintain, manage a staff from the clinical standpoint, understand the business, and also, really be in a position to move to where those opportunities are. Like Dr. Mecklenburg, it was actually Tallahassee, but yeah, that's
Tallahassee.
he started in Illinois, and within a month or two, he found himself in Florida, turning around, a really high volume office that just didn't really have the right people. And, now he's, I think, definitely owns 2, probably on his 3rd by now. So there's tons and tons of examples like that. And I think another thing that came up with mentorship earlier, within the Aspen model, you're going to be able to find mentors, whether it be clinicians or on the business side, to be able to help you get to where you want to be. So that's another just support that Aspen Dental Management has for the doctors. And I think it's up to the individual to find those sort of networking opportunities and leverage them. So Dr. Oaks, I think this is a good question to follow up with that. You mentioned that you started as an associate, you moved to an MCD or lead dentist, and now you own multiple offices. What does it take for a good associate to become a good MCD? What's the difference, and what does it take?
Just willingness to learn. I think being able to have a systematic process that works for you every single time, that it's reproducible. I think that's very beneficial to you. You're able to kind of like do those things. Then it's gonna work out for you. I also believe that for you to go from that associate to MCD to owner relatively quickly, you have to also understand the people that are around you and how they can support you. Like Jeff, for instance, like Jeff and I became very good friends through doing these things, but I also think it's very, very beneficial for me to talk to students just like you who are going to be future dentists in America, the world, Aspen Dental, and having that support, that backbone, being able to have and understand who you need to go to for certain things will help you become an owner quicker too.
Very good. Dr. Oaks, I mean, you could answer this one from your general experience, but the question is asking about relocation. If a new grad comes in and they're working for 12, 18 months and they decide to take another job, how easy is it for a dentist to relocate for a better opportunity?
So relocate within the Aspen brand, is that what they're kind of going down that avenue?
Correct.
It depends on the marketplace. So I've trained doctors in my office before to help that doctor go either back to Massachusetts, or I think she eventually wants to go back to Illinois. So she came and worked for me because the opportunity was there and she wanted a job. 6 months later, an opening fell into her lap for Massachusetts, and I said, that was your goal. Let's get you back down to that location. So it was easy for me. It was fine. Like I lost a doctor in the process, but goodwill, the doctor, the other dentist that I helped out, it'll pay off down the road in the future.
Right. So that's a dentist that starts with Aspen Dental under one owner or one entity and transfers for opportunity or for family reasons. What about the relocation fees? Do you know who
Uh,
covered the fees in that matter?
so that there was none. There was no relocation fees at all. So I'll do relocation fees for students if they're coming to work for me. So I gave a sign-on bonus for a doctor moving from Indiana to Maine. I think it was $5,000 for moving expenses, just to make it easier on them. Some people pay more, some people pay less, some people don't pay at all. It all depends on the marketplace. Like everyone wants to be in Florida. So if you're like, well, I'm not moving to Florida unless you pay me $10,000 to move there, uh, to me, if in that situation, you have to be like a really high producing dentist. And how do we know that? So I might say, no, I'm not going to pay that. I'll just get the next dentist who won't take $10,000 to move here. It really depends. Like you're going to find people like that. Maine is still a little bit of a difficult marketplace to hire doctors in. So I come on up. It's okay. If you need help, moving here, we'll figure out a way to make it work.
Very good. And I think from the recruiting standpoint, I can add to that as well. To Dr. Oak's point, look, when you come on as a dentist, you work for an entity, and that entity is the owner. The owners are the dentists. So although there are some shared costs, your quote unquote contract, and we'll get into that in a minute, is completely paid out by the owner dentist. All of our new hired dentists work directly for the owner dentist, and they get paid by the owner dentist. So when you're talking about, negotiations for sign-on bonuses, relocation, student loan reimbursement, and these kinds of things, and even rate of pay, that's all determined by your owner dentist, not necessarily Aspen Dental Management. So, you can be rest assured that you're going to be working for a dentist, not, a management organization to that point. So they cover all those fees. Now your recruiter during that process is the one that relays those messages and makes that and acts as an intermediary. But eventually it's going to be the dentist's decision on all that stuff. So if anybody has further questions on that, please just text me or email me afterwards. We'll set up a time to chat and we'll talk about that. The only other thing I'll add to that is, and Dr. O's can definitely back me up on this, is that, look, a lot of the best opportunities, whether it be if you're looking for a mentorship, guaranteed pay, student loan reimbursement, or just straight, patient selection, right? Demand and being able to, expedite your learning curve because of, you're treating more patients. A lot of that has to do with location. And a lot of that has to do with, kind of getting out of the major cities. So that's something we can talk about as well. But Dr. Oakes, do you have anything to add?
You hit it right on the head. Perfect.
Okay, cool. Yeah, there's a few more questions here that I definitely want to get to. One question came in a little bit early, but I kind of wanted to get to it a little, towards the end. And this is asking, hey, what is your advice for like a work-life balance? And I kind of want to get your sense on that. How do you do that? And then I kind of want to, add something as well.
I mean, work-life balance that's like an internal thing that you kind of have to work on yourself. Like I can't make a recommendation for you. I can tell you that like you will get burned out for sure. You'll get sick of doing number 4 DO and you'll do like 3 of them for whatever reason in a row. You're like, who is just messing with me? Why is it 4 DO 3 times in a row? Someone's messing with me. Like you'll be like, I never want to see this tooth ever again. Like you will have that epiphany. You'll be like, I need to take like a vacation for like 2 months. I can honestly say the work-life balance was hard for me because I just wanted to work really hard, pay my debt down. Now that Laura and I have a child, we have a different family dynamic. So my work-life balance kind of fell into my lap this year. One of my good fraternity brothers moved back to Maine. And so on Tuesday nights, I would cut out of work at 3 and I'd join a men's league for golf. And we played every Tuesday night. So that was my ritual. My staff hated it. They would just overbook and schedule the end of the day on Tuesdays. Like, guys, you have to cancel those patients. I'm not staying late. I have to be at the golf course at this time. And they were super upset about it at first, but they're like, I don't know, we have to do this. Like Dr. Oaks also has a life. So it's making sure that you voice your opinions about what you need. Obviously, you can't work one day a week for the rest of your life because you're not going to make any money, and it's not really beneficial for our patients or the practice or the owner. Because I would have to work the rest of those times too. So it's finding a healthy balance in the office, your family, and also like for the patients. You can't have two doctors out of the office at the same exact time. So it's planning well in advance. For Laura and I right now, to take a 2-week vacation, we have to plan 6 months, 8 months in advance to make sure everything's taken care of. Don't take on big cases right before so there aren't any emergencies when we're away.
Great. So Tuesday night is your men's league night?
Yep, Tuesdays. And then we get out also. We get out early on Fridays, so I can play golf on Fridays too. Or in the winter time, I'm going up to Sugarloaf to go ski at my parents' mountain house. So I have my work-life balance. It's comfortable. As long as I'm not. I used to pave roads. I used to do construction work. So as long as I'm not working 100-hour work weeks anymore, out in the sun, slinging asphalt on the ground, I don't care if I work 40 or 50 hours a week every once in a while. Like 40 hours a week is very, very comfortable for me. It goes by very quick.
Mizunos?
What, the Mizunos? Yeah, I got the Mizunos. The JP 950s.
The tennis just bought Mizunos.
Yeah. I got them on the utility irons now. The 3 irons, amazing.
All right. Question on compensation. How much does a dentist make on average in their very first year in a practice with Aspen Dental? You can kind of that and I'll help too.
I mean, it can be different market to market. Typically what you're going to see across the board nationwide is every single associate gets a daily draw of $600. If you work all the number of days that we're open, that equates to $150,000. That's your standard salary. And then it breaks down into a bonus scheme of an associate gets 6 to 10 or 6 to 8% profit.
8 to 10%.
8 to 10, excuse me, 8 to 10% profit. And then an MCD gets 18 to 20% profit share.
16 to 20 is pretty standard.
Yeah, I'm off there. 16 to 20.
But let me expand on that a little bit. So
I mean, I can tell you straight up, the first year that I worked, first 12 months that I worked with Aspen Dental, I made $157,000. And that wasn't when we were guaranteeing 150,000. We were only guaranteeing 125,000.
Gotcha. And that actually is about the average right now. In your first full 12 months as an associate dentist, the average is about 160 grand. In your first full 12 months as a managing clinical director, it's about 230,000 in your very first year. And the difference is Dr. Oaks mentioned it, is our dentists get paid off equity, so it's profit share. So each single office, the MCD would earn 16 to 20% of that gross profit share every single month. So, and what's great about that is that, if you're a hygienist, if you're an associate dentist, a lead dentist, an owner, or a specialist, everybody contributes to the revenue. Revenue minus expenses, you get your gross profit, and that's what you get. It directly ties how well the office is doing to the dentist pay. So if patients are getting through the door, they're saying yes to treatment, and the treatment's getting completed, it doesn't matter who does it, it goes to the revenue, and it's a profit sharing. And the best thing about it is it gives you an incentive to work hard as an office, to everybody work together for your patients to say yes and get the treatment and have happy patients. The other thing that Dr. Oaks mentioned is there is a daily draw that's guaranteed. So he mentioned it's $600 a day, guaranteed, never to give back, never to go away. It's your base salary. So the base salary is there as security. So if you're an MCD, lead dentist, you're not making, $250,000 plus off of your guaranteed, you're making it off your profit share. So in a nutshell, associates 160 on average. They probably tail off at about 170, 175, depending on the plan. MCDs around 225, 230, but we have MCDs making, up nearly 400,000 as a non-owner. And then of course you have the ownership piece, which, tremendously adds value to your take-home compensation. You're actually bought into the office, whether it's a percentage of the office as a partner or as a whole owner. And I think the average Aspen Dental dentist owns 2.5 offices, which equates to about $700,000 a year. So that's just a general sort of overrun, kind of high level compensation. But again, if you want to talk a little bit further and go into some detail, just text me or email me and we'll set up a conversation. But the other thing I want to add to your compensation piece is the CE, the medical, the, malpractice, everything else, the mentorship, the travel, all that good stuff. It all, in my opinion, is added value to the compensation. Dr. Oakes, do you have anything to add on compensation outside of dollars and cents? I mean,
Working for an owner, like there's other benefits too. Like Laura and I put on a really big party at the end of the year. I've paid for a few of my associates to become members of the American Academy of Clear Aligners. So, we do trips every once in a while. So there are benefits there, like outside of just monetary. That dinner with me, golf. I don't know.
Those are good. I want to clarify one thing, just because a question just came in. Is the profit share added to the 160 or 220? And the answer is no. The 160 is the average total earnings for an Aspen Dental dentist. And the 220 or 230, I think it's closer to, is the actual average take home for the MCD. But those average, that's not a ceiling, that's an average. So you're basically paid off of gross profit share, and the daily rate is just your guarantee that you'll never go below. That's all. I hope that clears that up. Listen, it's 7:55. I've answered 17 of 18 of the questions. And the last question is, who pays for all the equipment, such as the cone beam, the iTero scanner? I would imagine, materials and smaller equipment is in there as well. Is it Aspen or is it the practice owner? And, Doc, why don't you talk a little bit about how those are sometimes shared expenses and sometimes not, and who pays for what?
From my experience, the only thing that I've ever purchased in addition to the office has been shared expenses. I've never gone above and beyond where Aspen's turned around and said, we're not going to share that expense with you. Maybe you know of those situations, but most commonly, if I need something in the office to do my job, we will find a vendor that will work with us. If we can't find a vendor that will work with us, then we're going to go and we'll get a capital expenditure that we will split. If it's $100,000 and Aspen says we'll split it 50-50, then that's over a 5-year period that falls into the profit and loss statements at the end of the month.
Yeah, and one of the great things too about like Dr. Oakes owning 3 practices at Aspen Dental, when he buys 3 separate iTero scanners for his offices, he's not paying retail. He's probably paying about 40% or as a 60% of what that would be normally. So that shared expense, instead of a $30,000 shared expense, it could be a $22,000 shared expense, which comes out of his pocket as half of 22. So there's a huge advantage to being, partnering with Aspen Dental. And again, it's because our relationship with organizations such as Dental, Henry Schein and Patterson, et cetera. Okay, I believe that's it. I believe the majority of the attendees lasted the entire session, so that's a tribute to you, Tina, and to you, Dr. Oakes. We appreciate it. Ryan, you can go ahead and say hello to everybody. A lot of your classmates are on.
Hi. I'm kind of sitting here in the background.
And he's a dental Palsy 22-21 grad, for those who don't know him, and he was very instrumental in helping set this up. So Ryan, I really, really appreciate that.
Okay, no problem.
And I also want to introduce to everybody Dr. Laura Oakes, who's coming in with a smile.
Baby's asleep.
So there was a cool question. I was hoping you got on for. It was about work-life balance, and I just put you to a panelist position on here. And then, she texted me and said she was rocking the baby to sleep.
Yeah.
So at least you get to raise a family as an Aspen Dental owner, doctor, right?
Yes, we certainly
We
can.
can talk to that.
Yeah.
All right. So I promised everybody. So the panelists are not included on this, but I did a random drawing, and there are 2 Amazon gift cards that I raffled off. And first place, actually, let's do second place first. Second place is a $25 Amazon gift card, and that goes to Sarah Cower. So we will meet up with you. Congratulations, Sarah. You'll be receiving a $25 gift card. And first place, I would have loved to give it to you, Ryan, but I can't. That goes to Melody Chow. So Melody, we will hook up later, and you get a $75 Amazon gift card. So congratulations to Melody, and congratulations to Sarah. If there are any other pressing questions, say them now. I'll be on for another 2 minutes. And then I'm going to let the panelists go, and then I'll stay on for just a little bit longer. So
yeah, you guys can also shoot me an email at droaks@aspendental.com. I sent it out to a few people. You just shoot me an email. I can answer any questions that way. Don't ask me about visas. I don't know. I'll send you to Tina.
Yeah, Tina, I want to thank you very much for joining tonight. This was a great help, and you can go anytime you want, but thank you so much. I'm sure that the attendees, the guests, appreciated your insight, and I'm sure some of them will be reaching out again. So,
Thanks, Jeff. Sounds good. Yep.
We do have one more question, and it is H-1B visa related, and I think I can answer this one. Are you eligible to become an MCD on an H-1B? Is that possible? And the answer is absolutely. We have tons of MCD dentists that are on H-1B visas, so that one's there. So, all right, well, with that said, I want to thank everybody for joining us. Everybody stayed for the entire hour. That's fantastic. And if you have any follow-up questions, please reach out to myself or Dr. Oakes or their baby who should be sleeping.
Landon will answer your questions,
Yes.
the 2-year-old.
Landon,
Truck is the answer.
Truck is the only answer he knows.
All right, thank you all very much. I appreciate it. Have a great night, great weekend. Be safe.
Thanks, Jeff.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye. What'd you think, Ryan? Nope. I'm by myself.